So tonight we have a really special treat for everyone. We have Susan Young with the Shiloh Museum coming to talk about a story of Chicken Bristle Mountain, which is just right here in Elkins. She's going to be telling a really neat story about some families and some history here. And we also have Alan Bland, who's a retired Army Corps of Engineers ranger, and Alan's going to be sharing a lot about Beaver Lake and origins, what it was like before the White River was dammed up, and what its purpose is today. So we're here tonight to celebrate Lakes Appreciation Month and really to celebrate our water resources and the people that live here, all the stories of the history, and we just really look forward to tonight's program.
Now this cameraman told me I could go anywhere and he would follow me, so he has thrown down the challenge. And I am delighted to see you all now. Kathy, I know you well enough for you to keep time. What time have you got a watch on? You got a watch? Is that man you're with? Does he have a watch on? You got your watch? Okay, what time is it? 6:15. 6:15? At 6:40. I want you to, I'm serious, will you? Okay, all right.
20 minutes of your time.
I know, I gotta get warmed up, Alan. And here's why I want to be sure I stay on time is because there is no one alive that knows more about Beaver Lake than Alan Bland. It's the truth, and I want y'all to be sure that you get to experience his lifetime almost, adult lifetime of being involved with Beaver Lake. All right, I have a question for y'all. What brought you here tonight? You can think about that. You don't even have to answer it but just, and I don't mean, hi.
I used to live on Beaver Lake.
You used to live on Beaver Lake. All right, so I'm assuming everybody in this room lives somewhere within driving distance of this place. That's what I'm getting at. What brought you to this place? Not necessarily what brought you here tonight. How long have you been here, Miss Stokenberry, in this part of the world?
Oh, I'm 96 years old.
You're 96 years old. You've been here a while.
I've lived here
Since 1948.
since
And it just the faraway community of Baldwin before that. So what I'm wanting you to think about with that question, what brought you here, is to think about why we end up where we are. Why did people come to this White River Valley to settle? How many of y'all live in this, what you'd call the Elkins, Durham, Middle Fork area? How many of y'all live out in this area? Baldwin, that counts, Baldwin. Well, talk about this White River area, and I would say the Arkansas Ozarks in general, because it is a beautiful area. Now, there's not a lot of flat land out here in this area. There is some good river bottom land. And I would say that as long as humans have been coming here, and us white folks weren't the first people here, what drew them here? Well, it's bountiful. It's a good place to feed your family. And that's true for the first people that came here and true for people that are moving here today. It's a good place, good resources, natural resources, abundant resources for now, for the time, at least if we're smart about it, if we listen to Beaver Watershed Alliance folks and do what they say. It's a good place to be. So that's where I'm going with this, and I want to, how I'm tying this in to the well-being of Beaver Lake, of our water supply, and the well-being of White River, which allowed us to create Beaver Lake in the first place. Where I'm going with this is, my tie-in is historically, people have been coming here since as long as there have been people, and with all those people, there are stories. And stories that we don't even know that can be uncovered in the driest amount or driest examples of government documents or family letters that maybe aren't so dry, or family photographs. So I want to just take a few minutes to share one family story. It involves 3 families that historically were out here in this Elkins, White River area, and tell you what happened just a stone's throw away from us. And this is just an example from one set of families. And now I'm going to say I'm related to one of the families that you're going to hear about. But the story is fascinating. The story is not one I grew up hearing. The people I'd never heard of until recently in the last 10 years. But so compelling. So who knows where Chicken Bristle is? All right. Have you ever heard why Chicken Bristle? That's the question that always comes up. What does that mean, Chicken Bristle? You ever heard tell?
Well, I lived there, and the story then was that it was the ridge of the mountain. Kind of looked like the back of a chicken bristle.
So if you can't hear what she said, is what story she heard is that the ridge of the mountain, Chicken Bristle Mountain, looked like the back of a chicken's neck. That's a good one. Now, and I don't know the true story, or if there is a true story, but the story I've heard is that the school that was associated with the community that came to be known as Chicken Bristle, the school was officially called Mountain View, but folks knew it as Chicken Bristle. My grandma, Mary Ellen Young Robbins, then taught at Chicken Bristle. And the story that I have read is that a little boy was eating lunch. You know how kids used to bring their lunch in a pail to the one-room school. Was eating lunch, and he had a piece of fried chicken that his mama had put in his lunch pail, and he got to chewing on something, and it was a feather. And he said, there's a chicken bristle here in my mouth. Who knows? So, but anyway, that's the story. That's the place we're going. Now, this is the person I want to introduce you to. Let me get out of the way. Now, Mr. Cameraman, you able to follow me? All right, I'll try to stay close to right here. I don't have many pictures to show you, and this is the only picture I've ever found of this woman, Sophronia Young Springston Smith. She's my second great-grand aunt. Never heard of her until a few years ago when I was working on my family tree, and I stumbled across her, and I don't know why, but if you do family history, if you do genealogy, you'll know what I'm talking about. Somebody in that family tree will just grab you, and it's like they physically grab you, and they don't let go of you until you start finding out their story. And that's what happened with my great-great-grand aunt Sophronia. She took me by the hand, and she led me on an exploration of this area out here around Chicken Bristle that took me through family history, Civil War history, that brought me to tears of sadness and to tears of laughter, all in one family story. So the 3 families I'm going to tell you about are the Youngs, of which she was one, the Springstons. Now, do we have any Springstons in the audience? I'm shocked because the Springstons are thick out here still today. And the Smiths. Do we have any Smiths in the audience? Okay, so I was worried because I'm just going to tell you what I've read in the government documents, and I hope I'll present it as fact and it won't offend any Springstons or Smiths or Youngs for that matter. But don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. So we're going to talk about what I found out that started out with the life of Sophronia. Now, if I'm doing this program somewhere else, nobody knows where Chicken Bristle is. This is an enlightened audience here. But Chicken Bristle, you see where we are, Elkins. Chicken Bristle is about where that little red star is. It's just almost in Madison County. It's about, it's just a few miles south and east of here. And the mountain does look, the edge of that mountain, those bluffs do look like the back of the chicken's neck. That's interesting. All right, and so you don't think I'm making something up, this is an official topo map. Can you see that? Chicken Bristle Mountain is a named location. And here's Elkins on the far left. So, and there's the White River. There's our White River. So here we are. There's the White River. Here's Chicken Bristle Mountain. And to show you kind of the proximity of the families that I'm going to talk to you about, this is a 1908 map. But in the 1860s, this is how close these families lived. We're going to talk about William Springston, his son Linton Springston, their neighbor Thomas Young, and furthest away, but still only 3 or 4 miles, is J. Hugh Smith. So you get an idea, that's the closeness. These are neighbors. These are people that know each other very well. Now here's Linton Springston. And here's where I'm going to start to try to stick to my script so I'll stay on time. In September of 1860, so what hasn't happened yet in the Civil War, but it's fixing to, isn't it? In September 1860, 24-year-old Linton Springston married his sweetheart, an 18-year-old girl, a neighbor girl, young woman named Sophronia Young. Remember that picture of Sophronia? Now Sophronia, along with her parents, Thomas and Martha Young, and her siblings, they had all packed up from Middle Tennessee in late 1850s. By 1860, they are living out there by Chicken Bristle from Middle Tennessee. So Linton and Sophronia get married, and within a year's time, Linton had purchased 120 acres. Now I'm going to say Linton and Sophronia because while the paperwork all shows his name, she was helping. She's a part of it too. They had purchased 120 acres just south of Chicken Bristle near the homesteads of both their families. So here's where Linton and Sophronia set up housekeeping. Here's where Linton's father, William Springston, lived. Here's where Sophronia's father, Thomas, and mother, Martha, lived. So they are neighbors. Now let me put this sheet down. Maybe I'll do one sheet at a time. It was August 1862, a scant 2 years after their marriage, when Linton and Sophronia, let's go back here to Linton. Linton and Sophronia's life was torn apart, changed forever. Confederate soldiers came through this area, and let me tell you, this present-day Elkins area, White River area, Middle Fork Valley area was infested with bushwhackers, was pillaged by northern and southern soldiers and bushwhackers who had allegiance to neither side but just saw a situation they could take advantage of. It was a rough place to live during the Civil War. Confederate soldiers came through Chicken Bristle Mountain area gathering up conscripts. Now what that means is they look at you and say, you're fit to serve. You may look old, but you're fit to serve. Just kidding you. You got, a broken foot? Well, we'll put you in the kitchen. You can peel potatoes. So they'd give you a choice, these soldiers. And Union and Confederate, both sides did it. They'd say, you can come join up right now, or we'll shoot you, or we'll hang you. Decision's yours. Now, Linton's family, the whole Springston family, were strong Unionists, but the Confederates gave him no choice. Sophronia, his wife, was 2 months pregnant as she watched her husband ride off with the Confederates. 2 months later, October 1862, Linton Springston deserted. He was down on the Mulberry River near the town of Mulberry. He deserted or escaped, depending on which side you focus on. And Springston family lore said that he made his way back up from that Arkansas River area of Mulberry, back up here, and went to Fayetteville, or Fayetteville as my ancestors called it. Fayetteville, you know what I'm talking about. Because that was a safe place. That was Union occupied. So here Linton could find a safe haven there. He went there in October, and word got back to Sophronia, his wife, who's now 7 months pregnant. And Springston family lore is that Sophronia got on a mule and rode from Chicken Bristle to Fayetteville to see her husband. And she went into early labor after she got back home and gave birth to a son, John Henry Springston, the day after Christmas, December 26, 1862. Now, I don't know, I guess we'll never know if Linton was able to sneak out here and see his son being born. I don't know. Because the next time we have any mention of him in the legal documents, and here's where I start showing you a bunch of probably not too interesting documents, but boy, let me tell you, they're gold. The next time we see Linton is when he enlists. This is his enlistment papers with the Union's troops. He enlists on March 20th, 1863 in Fayetteville as a corporal with Company I. And the reason I'm going to tell you these company and regiment names is to show you that I really have tried to do the research on this. He enlisted as a corporal with Company I, 1st Regiment, Arkansas Infantry. Now, Company I was notorious in this area during the Civil War days. It was led by a man named William Heffington, Wild Bill Heffington. He was a former Confederate soldier turned bushwhacker turned Union Army captain. Now that's a resume. And under Heffington, the men of Company I, these Union soldiers, Linton Springston among them, became well-known Union guerrillas. Some would say bushwhackers in northwest Arkansas. So I want to establish that at this point, Sophronia's husband Linton has escaped from the Confederate Army, become a Union soldier, and signed up with one of the best-known companies of Union guerrillas in northwest Arkansas. So it appears that Wild Bill Heffington's style of fighting suited Linton Springston, because in December 1863, 8 months after he enlists, he was promoted. I know that's hard to see. He's promoted from corporal to sergeant. And 2 months later, you think, boy, his career's taken off. But 2 months later, on February 22nd, 1864, Linton Springston died. And here is record. He died not of a battle wound, and I know that's very difficult to read, died of erysipelas in the General Hospital, Fort Smith, Arkansas, February 28, 1864. Does anybody know what erysipelas is? It's a horrible skin disease, and it comes with infection, and it's horrible. And this is just a good example of how more soldiers in the Civil War died of disease than they died fighting on the battlefield. He was 28 years old. Well, about a year and a half later, so that's at that point he drops out of history for us. But we know about a year and a half later, in July of 1865, his widow, Sophronia, now 23 years old with a 2-year-old child, John Henry, applied for a Civil War widow's pension. If you don't take anything else away from this talk, take away how the paperwork that is available, if you are interested in your family history and they lived during the Civil War era, there's a gold mine potentially of information for you to uncover. Sophronia applies for a Civil War widow's pension. Now, under U.S. law, if a widow could show proof that her husband had served honorably in the Union Army and died of service-related wounds or disease, she was entitled to receive a monthly pension, which could range anywhere from $8 to $30 a month, depending on the soldier's rank. And as part of the pension application process, local witnesses had to come forth. Sophronia had to gather up people that would vouch for her, that would support her claim that, yes, we were married, and yes, he fought for the Union, and yes, he died a soldier. So here are the people that vouched for her. The top name, I see that looks like L.H., but I see him in the records as Stuart Carlisle. That's the minister that married Sophronia and Linton. He vouched for him. He said, I performed their marriage. The second one, A.L. Thompson, is Aaron Thompson. Oh, there's lots of Thompsons out here yet still. He was a lieutenant who served alongside Linton in the Union Army. And that third name here, illustrious local history family, John C. Carter was the doctor that delivered little John Henry, their only child. So 3 solid witnesses that could vouch for Sophronia and Linton's marriage. Well, this pension paperwork was complicated and tedious and almost always required an attorney to shepherd the process through. But in Sophronia's case, it took 10 months, which is really not that long when you think about legal processes today. But it took 10 months. She was granted $8 a month. Can you see that? $8? $8 a month as a widow. So yes, May 1866, she gets her widow's pension. She's going to get $8 a month, which is no mean amount for a widow woman out here in the hills. Well, a month later, in June of 1866, 24-year-old Sophronia remarried, this time to a man named Jehu Smith. You'll see his name as John, as James, but I'm going with Jehu because the only signature I've ever seen of his, and I'll show you it in a minute, it clearly is Jehu, which is oftentimes a form of name for John. Now, Jehu Smith was 14 years older than Sophronia. He was a widower with 5 children. So you see his motivation to find a wife, right? And he was also a Confederate veteran. So now Sophronia, who's just got her Union widow's pension, has married a Confederate veteran. And pension law held that if a widow remarried, no matter who, she lost her pension. So Sophronia's newly gained $8 a month was terminated. But that I will submit here, that was the least of her worries, because there are clues in paperwork, that legal documents that I've found, to suggest that Sophronia's choice of a new husband, of Jehu Smith, the Confederate veteran, did not set well with her former father-in-law, William Springston. Now, I learned a lot about William Springston by looking at files from the Southern Claims Commission. If you have never heard of the Southern Claims Commission, and if you had family that lived in the South during the Civil War and were Unionists, you need to go tomorrow and look up Southern Claims Commission files. The Southern Claims Commission was a government agency that after the war, if I can prove I'm a Union sympathizer living here in Middle Fork Valley, and I have proof that Union soldiers came through and took my last 5 chickens and my good mule and my whole corn crib full of corn, because they needed those things for their troops. If they would give you a receipt for it and promise you'd get paid, and you never did because it's wartime. But if I can prove that to the Southern Claims Commission, I can get reimbursed for those things. So there are lots of records of people in the southern states filing claims to get reimbursed. In William Springston's case, he had asked for $450 to pay for 3 mules taken by Union soldiers after the Battle of Prairie Grove in December of 1862. Now, Springston, the paperwork bears it out, all the testimony. He was a staunch Unionist. William Springston, the father of Linton, the father-in-law of Sophronia, a Union man, in his testimony to the Southern Claims Commission. So you'd have local attorneys that would set up shop, or agents of the Southern Claims Commission, and you would have to go to them, and they had a set list of questions they would ask you, and you would testify, answer all these questions. And you would bring your friends that could testify that, yes, he was a Union man. Well, his friends characterized him as an ardent friend of the Union cause, an ultra-Union man, a pure-hearted, zealous Union man. And one Springston ally said, Mr. Springston was always classed with the loyal element and as an advanced Unionist at that. And another stated, the Union families all went to him for advice and assistance, and it was noted in this country meaning this Elkins, White River, Middle Fork Valley. It was noted in this country that he was always ready to befriend the families of Union soldiers and Union men who had run off. Because if you hear that the Union soldiers are coming through to gather up men as conscripts, they're going to force you to be drafted. If you didn't want to go, maybe you had a crop to put in, or maybe you felt like you were just too old. You'd go off and hide, and then it would be up to your family and friends to bring food to you and help you hide out until the soldiers were gone. Now, William Springston, that's his handwriting. And again, I don't have pictures of these people, but there is something evocative about seeing their signature. So you kind of get an example, here his shaky hand, but that's William Springston's signature on these documents, and he himself described his Union loyalty like this. I had one son, Linton Springston, in the Arkansas Infantry. He died in the service in Fort Smith, Arkansas in February 1864. I had another son, Calvin, who belonged to the Union militia and was killed in action in Fayetteville in October of 1864. I had another son, Williamson, who was a teamster for a spell for the Union cavalry. My other son, Warren, was an employee in the government shop at Fayetteville. Two of my sons, Linton and Calvin, were forced by public pressure to go into the rebel army. It was while the rebels was conscripting and it looked like there was no chance to keep out. That was in 1862, and Linton deserted and made his way out to Springfield, Missouri, but did not enlist with the Union Army until March 1863. Linton was with the rebel army for a few months and Calvin but a little longer. I fed Calvin 5 months in the brush, meaning out in the woods, while he was waiting to get to the Federal Army. I had no chance to use any influence to prevent them from going into Confederate service, for we were told that if the boys did not go in, they would get shot. There's the whole family history, the military history of this one Springston family right there. So he also went on to record harassment by his neighbors. Now he said everybody knew I was a Union man, and none of my direct neighbors ever harassed me, but people that lived nearby did. He said they sent others to rob me, and it makes my blood boil now to think about how I was treated because I stuck to the Union. 4 mules and 4 horses, lots of forage and house property. These things were taken by the bushwhackers at various times. Now y'all remember, this happened just 3 miles down the road as the crow flies. Rebel bushwhackers threatened to burn his house. They were men he did not know, he said, but they used to come at night and rob me and threaten to kill me. This was done repeatedly. So he went on, he gave every bit of testimony of what he had suffered at the hands of the rebel army. And clearly his family, the Springstons, suffered greatly during the Civil War. And now, here in 1866, now when the war, memory of the war is still burning strong, his widowed daughter-in-law, Sophronia, has married a Confederate veteran, J. Hugh Smith. And there's, see, now doesn't that look like J. Hugh to you? J-E-H-U. J. Hugh Smith. Okay, thank you. He's gone and married J. Hugh Smith, and do you not think that's a bitter pill to swallow? So here is how William Springston retaliates. He goes to court and files for custody of his little grandson, John Henry. And he wins custody. I'm going to try to do this from memory so I can get Alan's time. The court gives him custody of John Henry, but William does not take John Henry into his house. The little boy, John Henry, has been living with his grandparents, with Sophronia's parents. My theory is that after Linton died, Sophronia and the little baby, John Henry, moved in with her parents and stayed there. But then when the court gives custody to William Springston, he doesn't take the boy in. fact, there's one document that said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, I'm happy to leave the child with the Youngs because he is well adjusted and they take good care of it. They take good care of it. So I don't know what this does to Sophronia. Now remember, she's got 5 stepchildren that she's just taken in. They would go on. Sophronia and Jehu Smith would have 9 more children. 9 children of their own. So she's got a lot of kids. Maybe she thought John Henry's better off with her parents, where it was said he was a frail child because of the premature birth. So maybe she thought that was the best decision. I don't know. We'll never know that answer. We do know that he was frail because here is a receipt from Dr. Carter saying that the guardian of William Springston, the guardian of John H. Springston, a minor, and he's given $2.25 for the care from Dr. Carter. So, and there are lots of receipts in the county courthouse about little John Henry's ailments. So here again, consider the proximity of these folks. Well, Sophronia, now let me get Sophronia, William, the little boy's grandfather, William Springston, files for a minor's pension. John Henry's father was killed, Linton was killed, so little boy John Henry is eligible for a pension. William files for that pension and the money comes to him. He gets the pension for the child, but then he uses it. He pays Thomas and Martha Young every year. He'll pay them anywhere from $50 to $60 for caring for the child. So there's these relationships. And here is the document. Things keep happening. This is a document, William Springston, guardian of John Springston. Here he is testifying that the boy's mother, my said ward, married a rebel soldier since the war, and my reasons, all of a sudden William Springston stops taking the boy's pension. Just quit. He said, my reasons for not taking the pension is that I had money on hand. He was a large landowner. He was well-to-do. And the child being unhealthy, I thought if it should die, the mother and father would get all the money. And as they were both rebels, I thought I had rather the general government would get the money, than for them to get it. Do you see that? Now, isn't that something? He did not want his grandson to get the pension that was coming to him because he was afraid the little boy would die, and then Sophronia and her new husband would get it. So here are the signatures of the little boy's grandparents on the Sophronia's parents, testifying that yes, they do indeed, they are getting money for the care of the little boy. Here they're getting 12 months, $50 for 12 months care. And here is the retort from Jehu Smith. William Springston dies before the boy's pension is reinstated. So now Sophronia is, well, Jehu, you're my husband, you need to get custody of this child. So he goes and tries to get custody for John Henry. And here is his description of William Springston: being very old and feeble and living a long distance from any post office, he neglected to he neglected to get the pension because he was too old and feeble, is what Jehu Smith is saying. That's why I should be the guardian and why we should get reimbursed back money for the money that William Springston never got on the boy's behalf. So you see, here we have in one family, William Springston, the Unionist, Jehu Smith, the stepfather, who is described by William Springston as a rebel. And then you have Jehu Smith, who is described by William Springston, Jehu Smith, who describes William Springston as old and feeble. So can you imagine the family feud that was going on here? Finally, when John Henry Springston reaches adulthood, J. Hugh Smith does become his guardian and holds the money. When John Henry Springston, was of adult age, he was given $1,300, and he parlayed that into that was his saved up pension money from being the orphan of Linton Springston. He used that money to start a farm, he was in the store business at Durham. He was very active at Durham, the postmaster. He was well known for being an apple producer. This is him in older years. That's little John Henry in front of his apple dryer. That's where they would take the apple crop and the culls, they would dry them and send them out in barrels as dried apples. This is when this man from New York came down. It made a big stir that there was a man all the way from New York coming to buy apples here in Durham down the road. So Sophronia outlives Jehu. She goes back and decides, well, I need to try and get my pension back again. So she's now trying to get a Confederate pension. The question that I probably will never be able to answer is, was Sophronia Smith getting a Confederate widow's pension and a Union widow's pension at the same time? Because she sure filed the paperwork to do it, and we'll probably never know. But she succeeded in that. She had many people testify on her behalf that she was poor, indigent, had no means of making a living, needed this pension, and she was finally granted the pension. Restoration of she got the Confederate pension, she got her Union pension restored. She'd outlived both these husbands. So she again has her nephew William Young, her sister Lucy Carter vouched for her being poor and indigent. She finally is approved for a pension of how many? Well, it got up to $20 a month. In 1916, that's a pretty substantial pension. So she is getting this pension money only for a couple of months when she passes away. She dies in, let me get this right, she died in April of 1917 of liver cancer. So she only received a couple of months of pension, of that $20 pension before she passed away. Her son, Walter, this is her son with J. Hugh Smith. This is a receipt for him buying the coffin to bury her in. $25 for a coffin. She's buried at McCord Cemetery here down the road. And that last check, that last pension check was returned by the post office in Durham because it arrived after she had passed away. So here we have just down the road, 3 families intertwined, one woman at the heart of it, whose story involves Confederate leanings, Union leanings, marriages, family intertwinings. She was a Union widow, a Confederate widow, sister of Unionists, sister of Confederates. Her brothers were split in their allegiance. She was a rebel daughter-in-law, mother of 10 children, stepmother of 5 more. That woman raised 15 kids. And what we know on paper about her, for the most part, here's her signature, her mark. That's her mark, meaning she didn't know how to write. And so she has kind of left a mark on me. And whenever I go to McCord Cemetery, which I do often, it's one of my favorite places to just go and contemplate. There's her grave. It's a modern stone that's put there. There's Jehu. I believe it says James, but I'm going to maintain that the name he went by was Jehu for legal documents anyway. And standing right there next to her grave and looking southeast, that's Chicken Bristle out there. White River is there between them. So I encourage you to get out in these hills and hollers and think about the stories that are here, because the people who came here first were first drawn here by the bounty of the land, of which the White River is the engine for. And these stories that we have that I've been able to tell you today are a direct result of the White River, So I appreciate what Beaver Watershed is doing to protect that great resource, to help us understand the value of it, and I hope that you'll agree with me that it's certainly a resource worth saving, as our history and our stories are worth saving as well. Now, I've gone way over. Thank you for flagging me down. Didn't do any good, did it? Didn't do a bit of good. So can I just turn it over to Alan, to the man who knows more about Beaver Lake than any person alive, and I mean that with all sincerity. So, Alan, let's give it up for Alan Bland. You don't want this, do you? Oh, yeah.
You know, you're talking about bushwhackers. Today we just call them Yankees. So, same thing. I'm very informal. I don't have a PowerPoint. And anytime you have a question, just ask me. You don't have to raise your hand. I do move around a lot, guys. So, this is all off the top of my head. I did start, Sue and I both native of Fayetteville, but I've been out to Rogers at least probably 45 years. But every weekend, even living in Fayetteville, we spent at Rocky Branch camping. My parents had property out there, and I have property out there now, so every single weekend was at Rocky Branch. So, I mean, which was great, because that's where I learned my love of snakes. I love snakes. I'm a snake guy. I still have pictures of me, a kid, holding up 5 or 6 copperheads and stuff like that. So that's where I got my love of snakes. But I started with the Corps in 1979 as a summer ranger. Got on full-time permanent, I think, in '85. I did 36 years at Beaver, and only Beaver. I did a short stint before that at Lake Greeson, which don't ever go there. You don't need to waste your time down in Pike County, unless you're going to Crater Diamond State Park, which is right there by Lake Greeson. So I do remember the White River coming up before it was Beaver Lake, which that's and I'm going to test you guys along the way, okay? So I'm going to see how well you know what is out there. So Beaver Lake, right? You have to nod your heads. You have to be, okay. It is not Beaver Lake.
They're telling you to speak up, brother.
Speak up. I can do that. So Beaver is not a lake. What is it?
It's a reservoir.
It's a reservoir. What's the difference?
Man-made.
Man-made. Did y'all know that? Our first beaver maps that the Corps put out says Beaver Reservoir. I thought I could bring one tonight, but I couldn't find it. So Beaver Reservoir. I still refer to a lot to as Beaver Reservoir because it's man-made. Have y'all been up to the dam before? Beaver Dam? 8 miles out of Eureka Springs? Okay. I'm going to talk a real bit about that since somebody took up 90% of my time. A little bit about why, okay, first question I'm going to ask you, Beaver, how did we get the name? Beaver Lake, because there was a lot of beavers?
Beaver for the bridges.
Okay. Y'all hear that? The town of Beaver. There was many congressmen and many senators who wanted it named after them. The Corps of Engineers has 406 projects nationwide. A lot of them are named after congressmen and influential people. Thank goodness it didn't get named after them, but obviously the town of Beaver is where the dam is. So that's how it got its name, Beaver Dam. So what's the name of the river that we put the dam on? So what direction does the White River flow in Arkansas? Okay. What direction does the Mulberry flow? War Eagle. Kings. Okay. So that freaks a lot of people out. People will move here and there is no way in hell that a river can go north. We used to get calls every now and then, somebody just moving here and saying, yeah, you guys put the dam in the wrong location. It should be down near Fayetteville. So why is that? 'Cause we know what they're going to say. And well, because the river flows that way. No, it actually flows the other way, which is hard for them to believe, but then we bring out the maps and show them so they all understand a little better. So real quick, why did the Congress approve of the Corps of Engineers to build Beaver Dam? Why did they approve it? What did they approve it for? At first, when the Corps proposed it to Congress, water was not even talked about. It was talked about two things before that. We used to call it flood reduction or flood control. Now we call it flood reduction. You really can't control a flood. And what was the other one? What is this stuff up here? Hydroelectric power, exactly. So they said we can do hydroelectric power and we can do flood reduction. And the Congress said that's not enough. So they came back and said, what if we do water supply? Congress said, okay, that's enough. The cost of the whole project was about $42 million, which sounds like a lot, but it wasn't. We have two generators that are 74,000 horsepower. They're 4 stories tall. If you've ever been in the powerhouse, probably not. Okay, few people have. After 9/11, nobody gets in the powerhouse. We've got so many cameras set up, and if you want to know, I can't tell you where they're at or how it works, but if you want to know if you're on a terrorist watch list, get close enough, long enough to the dam, and you find out in about 16 minutes because your face gets scanned. We're that serious about that dam. Today, we would never build a highway across a dam. I mean, that's stupid, but you know, we didn't think about things that would happen today. Kind of crazy. So Congress authorized us for flood reductions. How does Beaver do flood reduction and where? Any idea? Do we do flood reduction here in Skull Creek and Fayetteville, Spring Creek and Skull Creek and Fayetteville, Spring Creek and Springdale? Do we do flood reduction there? No. Here's how we do flood reduction. Because we're the one on the Upper White River, we're the last one up here, we're the highest elevation core lake in the state of Arkansas. What we do is, and when Beaver gets through with their water, who do we give it to? And when Table Rock gets through with it, who do they give it to? Taneycomo. And when they get with it, get rid of it, it goes to where? And when they get rid of it, it goes to where? Not Norfolk. But it becomes kind of the lower White River. And the lower White River empties into where? Which empties into the Gulf. Okay, a lot of people don't think about how it works. So, flood reduction, Beaver is not doing it too much this year, but flood reduction is we have to hold our water the longest. Bull Shoals Lake is a lot what they do, and they're bigger than us. Depends on what they do. It takes a long time for them to fill up, and when they get filled, that Table Rock can't give them any water. We can't give Table Rock any water. So it has to work out that way. But the Corps changed the rules about 6 years ago that, yeah, it's still going to be high elevation, but not for near as long. They're going to get rid of it quicker. They're going to get rid of it at a bull. And what happens is, how we're doing with flood reduction, you know, that you've heard that old saying, never cuss a farmer with your mouth full of food. Because if we don't hold the water, all our lakes don't hold their water back in the summertime, all those crops don't get planted along the very fertile river bases. I talked about all the rivers. But if we let the water go, that will be flooded all summer. So farmers can't get any crops in, cattle, you name it, all the way. So that's how we do flood reduction. So it's an important tool, but a lot of people never think how it works. Hydroelectric power, 2 big generators, okay? The equivalent of, and we are a peak demand dam. What does that mean? Anybody know? No? Okay. A lot of time you'll see, hopefully you've downloaded our app, it's free, USACE, Little Rock, USACE, that's short for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Little Rock is our district office. But you can download that app and you can look at every lake and find out so much information free, it's pretty cool. But how we do hydroelectric power, our 2 generators are about the equivalent of supplying the city of Little Rock with electricity for a year. Our hydroelectric power can go up to 6 states away. It works off a grid. The Department of Energy in Tulsa actually has this big map with I think 20-something lakes in it. They determine when we generate, how many generators, for how long we generate, where is the electrical need. Is it in Louisiana right now? Is it Missouri? Is it in Texas? So that's why all these lakes, you know, different ones do different things. But peak demand dam means that lots of times you'll see us generating in the morning. Everybody wakes up, everybody's turning everything on, okay? So a lot of times you'll see us generating there. And late in the evenings, you'll see us generating. Everybody's got home, so they're turning everything on again and getting ready, cooking, whatever. So that's important. So that's how we do hydroelectric power. Right now, and this is what amazes me, is people, live in Benton and Washington County. So if it's this hydroelectric power, if it's not coming from Beaver, where could this electricity be coming from right now? What's on the west side of Benton County? A lot of people have no idea, which, wow. There's a coal power plant? Okay. Every day, hundreds of train cars with coal from Wyoming come into Benton County. You've heard of Swepco Lake? Okay. It's I don't know, it's probably a 300-400 acre lake. And there's a big tower there for the cooling water to come down. The lake is very warm year round. It can be 88 degrees in the wintertime. But it's great for fishing. Everybody loves it. And that's over by Gentry. But there's a coal power plant there. So your electricity can be coming from there right now. Also, down at Russellville, what do you see going on down off the interstate at Russellville? Nuclear power, exactly. So you'll see the steam off and that tower there is just water coming down, evaporating. That's why you see the steam. So nuclear power. So it's pretty cool that who knows where your power is coming from right now. So let's talk about water supply, kind of important now. Any guesses how many people drink Beaver Reservoir every single day? How many, what our numbers is right now?
400,000.
Huh?
400,000.
Okay. Over 600,000. Okay. All right, so that means, and I'm an Arkansasier. Don't ever call me an Arkansan. If you want to get in a fight outside in the parking lot, come out and call me an Arkansan, it's on. I'm an Arkansasier. So one out of every fifth Arkansasier, one out of every fifth person in Arkansas drinks Beaver. That's how important it is. If you'll see now that the Beaver Water District is building pipe that's like over 5 feet in diameter. They're putting more out, the 2 tons putting more out, which begs the question is, how many water intake structures do we have in Beaver now? How many?
7.
No. How many? And then if you tell me correctly, you have to tell me which one went in first, second, third, and fourth. How many?
4.
4, okay. Which one was put in first? I'll give you a hint. Did you read all the billboard over there? Yeah. So what district is that out of Springdale? Lowell area. You're correct. Beaver Water District. First one put in, okay? What was the second one put in? You probably never thought about it. Carroll Boone, which means Carroll Boone County, up near the dam, okay? The third one put in was the Madison County water intake. And that was put in, really fortunate. You remember back in the day, copper mine, gas underground, contaminated everybody's water. That's really what got them motivated. Now everybody out in that area has potable water instead of going off a well. Pretty cool. And the last one put in was 2 ton. What does 2 ton mean? What does it stand for? Any idea? Okay. Okay. So Washington, T-O-N, Benton, T-O-N, that's how it got its name, 2 ton. So all the little towns west of here, in Washington County here, Benton County, like Gravette, Decatur, Gentry, all those areas, they didn't get Beaver water before. They do now because of 2 ton. Its intake structure's over by Prairie Creek. So it goes all the way in the edge of Oklahoma now. So water from Beaver goes past Harrison into Oklahoma now. Pretty cool. So who would have thought water supply would be that important? That's why Beaver Watershed Alliance, there's several groups that do a lot of work, different groups. One group takes water samples all the time. Every little creek, river that runs in here, they take water samples. We take water samples, the USGS takes water samples, the Arkansas Health Department takes water samples, always testing this water. It's a very extremely important lake, as you know. So that's kind of how we got to where we're at today. But the dam was started in 1960, finished in 1966. We had our 50th anniversary, I think in 2018 or whenever it worked there by the dam. If you've been up to the dam before, just before you cross the dam on the right, in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of it was closed off because there was a company from France here. Because they're the only one that had the technology then. That's why I say, you know, $42 million to build the dam. There was a leak, not in the dam, but in one of our causeways. There's 3 of them that link into Beaver, the dam. So there was a leak. Every time the water got really, really high, there was a little beaver pond down below the dam that would form. And it's like that's water from a leak about 200 feet down. So it's one of those things, pay me now, pay me later. So we had to pay this company from France to come in, and they lived here about 2.5 years, basically built a ditch up to 250, 300 feet deep, pulled everything out, and then filled it with concrete. Did it fix the leak? Absolutely. So that cost way more than $42 million to do that. But it was like, today it would be well over $100 million to do that. But it fixed the leak. Was the leak a major concern? Not huge, but when the lake got really high, you could see muddy water in the little beaver pond. So we knew that there was new areas being eroded. So it's kind of cool how it all worked out. But the reason the company from France, they had diamond tip saws. That was the only thing that would cut through this limestone. Sandstone, not so bad, but the limestone and chert and some granite to cut through that and pull it out and then fill it full of concrete. So pretty cool. In 1963, we built a helicopter pad right there by the dam. You can't really recognize it today. We have pavilions there and all that stuff. And that was built for John F. Kennedy to land and dedicate Beaver Dam. All presidents used to do that. But what happened to John F. Kennedy 9 months before he was to come and dedicate Beaver Dam? Anybody remember? He got shot, exactly. So we had a helicopter built, the whole thing. Now that helicopter pad is used by 4 or 5 different helicopter companies for drownings, wrecks, you name it out there. Pretty important. So it's kind of blended in now, but it was neat that it was built there to do that. That's a big diver hotspot now. Everybody likes to dive up there. We have a huge sailboat, a lot of sailboating. We get over 7 to 8 million people on Beaver every year. Like I said, there's 406 Corps of Engineers projects in the nation. I think we're in 47 states. You know, all the lock and dams on the rivers, those are Corps of Engineers. What's really cool, and you'll never get to do this, but I'll kind of rub it in your face because it's cool. At every lock and dam, there is a tunnel that's about, I don't know, about 10 by 10 wide that goes underneath the river from one side of the river to the other. And it's a long walk. But that's pretty cool to go underneath the river in a concrete tunnel all the way to the side of the river. So every lock and dam has that. And have you all ever got the lock through a lock and dam? You can do it. Take your kayak, your canoe. They'll lock you through and do it. Yeah, it costs you all taxpayer dollars, but that's what it's for. So you can take a little boat up there. They'll open it up, fill it full of water, depending on whether you're coming or going, and doing it that way. So it's pretty cool. Let's see. I could talk about a whole other stuff. Now, what I brought, and you can come up here in a minute and see it, but I was able to, they were actually going to throw these away, and I grabbed them many, many years ago. These are aerial photos from 1936 of the White River, before Beaver, of course. And I was able to key it out and see, like, you know, Salts Bluff, Point 5, Big Clifty, North Clifty, and I've got all the maps over here. But like Montanay, I could do a whole thing on just Montanay, William Colleen Harvey, where the railroad used to come across through here. You see the horseshoe of the Horseshoe Bend, and where the railroad used to go up to the Hobbs State Park before it was Hobbs, Roscoe Hobbs property. And then like right here is Bear Island. Right here is the old Highway 12 bridge, which they got some of it, but a lot of it they just dynamited, and it's down in the river bottom right now. As you come east over the bridge, that second pier, if you're going east, is in the river, the bottom of the river. It's 120 feet deep. Everything else is in a field, just an old field right there. Prairie Creek Marina actually started off right there at the 12 bridge, and then was moved over to Prairie Creek now. We have 7 big commercial marinas. But it's kind of cool to see that. And today, this is Bear Island. When you're crossing the bridge and you look to the left, there's an island there. That's what it looked like before is Bear Island. There's Deer Island. Prairie Creek's over here. So I've got a map marked with everything on here. I've also got a topo map from 1957 of the middle park of the lake. Of course, the lake's not on there in 1957. So you're welcome to come over here and look at it with me, but shows what it looked like before the lake. This big map over here on the end, the white one, the Corps did in the late 50s, again, it'll show you every house. And you know, we bought, you know, a lot of rumors about there's houses underwater. There's not. They had the opportunity if they wanted to move their house up on a ridge, they could. Most people know the government came in, of course, eminent domain, and the average then, and this was early 60s, was about $100 an acre. Sometimes they got more. Today, if we were wanting to put the dam in and all that, because of environmentalism and stuff, we would probably never be able to put that dam in today. It was way back before a lot of groups formed to sue you until oblivion and all that stuff, so pretty cool. I will tell you, the dam is a target. We were taught by FBI and Homeland Security what to look for. It is a very valuable target to blow up because of Tyson Food, J.B. Hunt, Walmart. And we've had many, many scares out there before, but nothing ever happened. But that's why you don't see all these cameras out there. You'll see some, but we're very sensitive to that. We have 7 Tainer gates, and everybody else calls them floodgates. But there's 7 of them, and they're like 40 feet wide, 40 feet tall. Just to tell you about elevation, when the lake gets 1130, which is 1,130 feet above sea level, okay, and like I said, we're the highest elevation lake, core lake in the state of Arkansas. If we didn't open the Tainer gates, and then we open them from the bottom, so they're curved, so we'd open in the bottom, the water goes out the bottom, drops about 220 feet into basically Table Rock. Because when it's full, you can take a boat from Table Rock all the way up almost to the dam. So at 11:30, if we don't open the gates, and we do, sometimes we'll do it at 11:27, 11:28. A lot of people get mad at us, you know, why don't you open them now based on the rainfall that's coming? Well, you can't do that. It could rain all day, all day. It could rain a foot in Eureka Springs, and you'd think, oh my God, the lake's gonna come up. Wouldn't make a bit of difference, because none of Eureka Springs is in Beaver's watershed. It can rain here all day, makes a huge difference. Fayetteville, Springdale area. Rogers, about 70% of that does not go into Beaver, and it's 4 miles away. So to see the watershed and how it works, so we can't open the gates just because it might rain. We don't know how much it's gonna rain. We wait till then. We have gauges in every stream that are hooked to satellites. We know exactly how much water, how many cubic feet per second. We know what's coming into Beaver. So the engineers, smart guys, they know exactly what to do as far as opening gates, not gates. Now the lake has been the highest it's ever been, is 1132.4, which is 2 feet higher. Even with the gates open, it still was coming in so much. Going through the gates, it was 1 million gallons of water per second coming through. Even with our 2 generators, then we have a little house generator that runs 24/7 to keep everything in the dam lit up. But these 2 big generators, they're called penstock tubes that are full of lake water. And both of them would probably just barely fit in this building. They're huge, huge things, and they're full of lake water. And that's where we pull about 180 feet down off the base of the dam is where we pull the water. And then we pull it down and it goes in a thing called a penstock tube and wicket gates that starts to turn, and they determine how much electricity they need, but they'll move the gates, you know, different widths open. It's really cool to see that, but you don't get to see that in person. But I only got to saw the wicket gates once. They were in there welding, and to see them is like pretty cool how it all comes together and works to do that. So pretty neat. Any questions for me? I know I've got a lot of stuff over here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Yes?
We go out by the water treatment plant where they're putting in the huge new pipes. And so I want to know, how will that affect the lake level when they fill those pipes up with water?
Which water treatment plant?
Out of the Boca.
Oh, 2 ton. Oh, that won't make a difference. A lot of people, every time, and we were already talking about it. We had a boat ride yesterday, and a lot of people, but the cities will say, we need to conserve water. We need don't water your yard until this time. Don't wash your car, whatever. That has nothing to do with Beaver. Beaver is a big, deep lake. On average, between 30 and 32,000 acres. I don't know what the average depth would be. The deepest part I've been to is 260 feet deep. It's a deep, big lake. We've got plenty of water. And all the water districts, all 4 of them have all put in, it takes a long time to get what we call acre feet of water off of the Beaver for water supply. It's just that the water districts have not caught up because it's a continuous project to get everybody all the water they want, to build the big enough pipe, all these people moving in here all the time. It's a constant deal, so it takes a long time to get all that done, to get acre feet to be able to do that. So it'll happen. Some won't get any more water because we have a lot of things to look at when we do that. It's kind of complicated because I don't even understand it all, but it's pretty cool how it all works. But it's not because Beaver is low. The lowest Beaver's ever been. And we like I said, we finished construction in '66, but really in '63, '64, when it got up to 1120, that's kind of when we consider, Beaver was full. So yeah, that was then. So we've got, I don't know, for a long time, probably for the first 25, 30 years, we would open those gates maybe once every 10 or 12 years. If you heard we had the gates open, stop what you're doing, get your butt up to the dam, get down below the dam, and do that, to see that, because it was so rare and so cool. But now, with all the rain we continually get over the last 15 years, it's been open a lot. The 2 times we've had it open the most was 9.5 feet. Remember, they can go up to 40 feet. So, and that's from the bottom, so 9.5 feet. Million gallons of water per second. Did that flood a lot of houses and stuff downstream? Absolutely. Damside Park, of course, is right downstream from there. Did we take out a lot of our own stuff? Absolutely. But that takes precedence over everything. Sometimes you just can't hold it all back. It's just a major rain event. They call that a 100-year flood type deal. And we've had 2 of them now in the last probably 20 years. So yeah, it takes out houses, it takes out a lot of stuff. But it was all right with us because Table Rock's our sister lake, so all of our toilets and stuff got washed into Table Rock. We just thought that was cool as heck. You can have all our stuff, we don't, So we give them a hard time. So, any other questions? But no, that won't have any effect. Any other questions? Wow, very calm.
It was okay for me to talk long.
Yeah, but I have a lot of stuff over here when Becky gets through talking, and a lot of cool things to see over here. The whole Highway 12 bridge, the new Highway 12 bridge. Got the map over here. More areas of the lake in 1936 before it was the lake. So a lot of things to come over here and see. So you want to talk?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many actual, post offices were covered up?
We're covered up. I believe there was 3 of them.
Just 3?
Yeah, and 2 were torn down, 1 was moved. And as far as houses, what's weird about that is because farmers didn't like it. That White River ground was the best ground for growing everything. But if you said, you're just going to have this ridge top up here, which poor soil, thin soil, can't grow strawberries or put cows on or anything. But those that kept that stuff up there on the hillside, it grows houses extremely well. And a lot of that land out there for an acre sells for well over $1 million. Well over. I would meet people all the time here. And what was cool is people very, very wealthy. And I'd say, so why here in Beaver? Why are you moving here? And they said, we've been all over the world. And they said, we come to Beaver, you have no idea what you have here. I said, okay, that's good. And then the other people would be out here. Of course, everything's about boat docks. Come out to prove it up, dock, yes or no. And they would say, I'd say, so, and very expensive 2 or 3 acres. And I said, so let me guess, you either work for Walmart or you're a vendor for Walmart. How did you know that? because you're the only ones that can afford this property out here. It's very expensive. And if you want to talk about docks after a hush, I'll be happy to talk to you about boat docks. Marinas, our parks, we have some closed right now. The tornado really got them. So if you want to talk about any of that stuff, I'll be over here to talk as long as y'all want. Becky, you're welcome. You want these back?